All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to break down what really makes a city or a region a hotbed for new businesses. And to do that, we're going to use Daniel Isenberg's fantastic model to really understand the hidden architecture behind entrepreneurial success.
So, let's start with the big question, right? Why do some places, like Silicon Valley, turn into these amazing magnets for innovation, while other places, with just as many smart people, kind of struggle to get anything off the ground? What is the secret sauce here?
Well, to even begin to answer that, you've got to understand that the world itself has totally changed. We've moved from that old industrial economy, dominated by huge companies making stuff, to a knowledge-based economy. And here, it's the new, nimble companies focused on services that are really driving growth. That makes creating a space for entrepreneurship more important than ever.
And here's the kicker. The secret isn't just about some lone genius with a world-changing idea. No, the success of that idea almost completely depends on the environment it's born into. It's not about the seed, it's all about the soil. And we call that soil the ecosystem.
So if it's all about the soil, how do we actually map it out? What makes it good or bad? Well, that's where the Isenberg model is so useful. It gives us a really clear framework to look at all the interconnected parts that make an ecosystem either thrive or just fizzle out.
The model is basically built on three big pillars. First up, you've got the surrounding environment. Think of this as the rules of the game. Second, the interacting actors. These are the players themselves. And third, the evolving culture, which is really the mindset, the attitude that guides everybody. We're going to dig into each one.
All right, let's tackle that first pillar, the environment. You can think of this as the foundation, right? It's the policies, the laws, the infrastructure that everything else is built on top of.
A huge part of this is what's called the business environment. As the source material defines it, this is pretty much all the official stuff, the complex web of laws, regulations, and policies that shape how any business has to operate day to day.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because a tiny tweak here can have a massive domino effect. Just look at Estonia. You can register a company completely online there in like under 20 minutes. That one policy change just unlocked a huge wave of entrepreneurship. It's all about removing friction, so founders can focus on building their company, not wrestling with bureaucracy.
So, the other side of this coin is the investment climate. This is less about specific, nitty-gritty rules and way more about the overall vibe, the feeling of confidence and stability. It's what answers an investor's #1 question. Is this a smart and safe place to put my money?
And here's the thing you have to understand about investors. They hate surprises. They crave predictability. So yeah, they need stable markets, solid infrastructure, a skilled workforce. But look at this list. Above all, they need the rule of law and political stability. If you don't have that bedrock foundation, the risk just skyrockets and investment money vanishes fast.
Okay, so we've got the rules of the game set up on a stable playing field. But a game is nothing without its players, right? This brings us to the next two pillars, the actors on the field and the culture that drives them.
And this image just perfectly illustrates the point. It's not a bunch of isolated players doing their own thing. It is a dense, messy, beautiful web of connections. You've got individuals, companies, universities, government, all of them interacting, sharing knowledge, and creating opportunities for each other.
The model helps us out here by breaking these actors into three main types. First, you've got the individuals. These are your founders, your mentors, your investors. Then there are the organizations, the companies, banks, and universities that provide the resources. And finally, and this one's a bit more abstract, you have the institutions. These are the deep cultural patterns, like society's attitude toward taking risks or the value it puts on innovation.
And that leads us to the final and honestly maybe the most powerful piece of this whole puzzle, culture. This image represents it as a compass because that's exactly what it is. It's this invisible force that sets the direction for the entire ecosystem. It's the shared mindset.
The source material just nails it with this quote. Culture directly affects whether someone even decides to become an entrepreneur in the first place. Think about it. Does this society celebrate risk takers? Is failure seen as a learning experience, or is it a permanent black mark? In Silicon Valley, failing fast is practically a badge of honor. In other places, that same failure could be a career ender. The answers to these questions, they change everything.
Okay, so we've looked at the environment, the actors, and the culture. Let's pull it all back together and see why this matters so much.
If you take away just one thing from the Isenberg model, let it be this. There is no single magic bullet. There's no one weird trick.
You can't just build a fancy science park or start a venture capital fund and expect startups to magically appear. Success comes from a holistic system where all the parts, the fair policies, the connected people, the supportive culture, all work together and reinforce one another.
And that really leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? A question for you. When you look at your own town, your own city, through this kind of lens, if you had the power to pull just one lever to make things better for entrepreneurs, where would you even start?